Hey, everybody. 10 years. 10 years of Fight for 15, and they're still fucking us. Isn't that amazing? After 10 years. Sorry, shouldn't use the F word that early in the podcast. This isn't even a podcast. It's a live stream. I'm sorry. I'm getting all my terms confused already. 15. Fight for 15 is 10 years old, and they're still fudging us. They're still Fuddruckering us. Man, thanks for being here. I'm gonna get into that story. Although there have been some big wins for the Fight for 15, and I promise you, I got some details about the Fight for 15 that you won't get anywhere else, or at least not a lot of places. You'll get it only a couple other places. I'm going to get into that story. I'm going to get into how Elon Musk is not the rogue maverick who's going to save you that people seem to think he is. He is deeply and existentially intertwined with our military-industrial complex, with the military, the CIA. I'm going to get into all of that. He's best buds with all of them, and business partners to boot. Also, hilariously, Facebook has revealed their quarterly threat assessment, where they show which inauthentic actors, which bots and bot armies and shit they've stopped. So apparently every quarter Facebook reveals this stuff, and little egg on the face of the U.S. empire when Facebook reveals to everyone that they're stopping U.S. empire troll farms, or whatever the fuck they are, data mining farms. I don't know. But gonna get into that story and much more. Also gonna reveal the new episode of the most censored news. And in that episode, we will get into the new leader of the Dems in the House. His name is Hakeem Jeffries. He's taking the place of Nancy Pelosi, who has been in office for roughly 637 years. And he's just taken her place, and we're going to get into who's funding him, who he's controlled by, because it's pretty jaw-dropping. And again, nobody seems to be talking about it, or very few. I'm gonna make that the new motto of this show: stuff you can only hear in a very few select places. But thanks for being here. Please take a second to click the thumbs up, click share if you're on a platform that has the share button. Click all of the other things you can click. If there's anything to click, if there's a little heart emoji, if there's a little unicorn humping an eggplant or whatever, I don't know what they put under these videos on the various platforms. This thing, what I'm doing right now goes out to roughly 16 to 92 platforms, somewhere in that mix, 16 to 92 platforms. Many of them I've never heard of. And so sometimes someone will tell me, hey man, I gave you 2 unicorn eggplant emojis with an elbow up and 1 eyelash. And I'll be like, oh man, thank you. Is that a good thing? Or does that mean something bad, or that we want to have sex? I don't know, but can you just, whatever platform you're all, do all the things that you can do. But we're going to get into all those stories. So let's do it. Let's start. Shut up, Lee. Just fucking start the goddamn show. All right. So over at Popular Resistance, they wrote about this. 10 years later, the fight for 15 and a union continues. I mean, it's kind of amazing that the fight for 15 is 10 years old. I mean, it feels like it was just yesterday. 10 years later, the fight for 15 has, and they do talk about the wins, by the way, of the fight for 15. So it's not, this article is not just, we're getting screwed. Although I'll get into that part in a minute. But they start out by talking about how this protest movement, Fight for 15, Fight for Workers, has had a lot of wins, has had some important wins for workers. But in the grand scope of things, the real, the real goal of having a living wage for people, that one has not been obtained. 10 years later, the Fight for 15 has won $150 billion in wage increases for 26 million workers. But the struggle continues as the federal minimum wage remains $7.25. $7.25. And a third of U.S. workers make less than $15 an hour. I didn't realize it was that high. A third of U.S. workers make less than $15 an hour. So on November 29th, 2012, over 100 fast food workers in New York City walked off the job to demand that their wages be increased to $15 an hour and to finally have a voice in their workplaces through union representation. That walkout was the beginning of a movement that articulated and emerged out of a need for human dignity and democracy in the workplace. Okay. The Fight for 15 may have had a lot of wins, and there may be a lot more wins coming, but democracy and dignity in the workplace, that's not happening. That is never happening. Don't put that on your list of demands, because they are never going to give you democracy in the workplace. All right. Democracy in the workplace. The workplace in our capitalist structure is totalitarian, and it will, under capitalism, it will always be totalitarian. There is no system where, now there are, I will say this, there are small examples of workplaces with democracy. There are examples of co-ops, but they are the exception that proves the rule. If that were to become the norm, then the ruling class would either go to all means to shut it down, or you would have the fall of capitalism, in which case maybe we could actually evolve to a better socioeconomic system in which we don't, destroy the world and work at places we hate for our entire lives. Just kidding. It's just a third of your life, although another third of your life you spend sleeping. So you take the sleeping and you take the spent at a job you fucking hate, and you got a third of your life left. All right. But so democracy in the workplace is, I am a big fan of it. I'm not saying don't work for it, don't fight for it, fucking fight for it. And in fact, oftentimes when a socioeconomic system falls or evolves, people evolve past it, it is because those smaller things that set the good example keep growing. So the co-ops and things are the way to start that. But I'm saying that in order to end up with real democracy throughout the workplace, throughout the entire country or entire world, you would need a new socioeconomic system, which is the way to go. Let's do that. Let's get there. I don't know what you're doing Saturday, but we can do it Saturday. A movement that has forcefully asserted that highly profitable industries dominated by multi-billion and multi-million dollar corporations can afford to pay their workers a living wage and allow workers to safely voice their concerns and address issues that impact them and their work. Out of those worker-led demonstrations a decade ago, the Fight for 15 and a union was born, a global campaign pushing to increase wages and improve working conditions. So 10 years, and obviously there are many wins, as they were saying, but 10 years, and still the federal minimum wage is not $15. The Democrats claim they tried to do something, but they couldn't because the parliamentarian told them not to. Right. So the Fight for 15 continues, and the ruling class, they have no intention of allowing this to happen. And the other thing is $15, what it meant 10 years ago, is very different from what it means now. I don't know the exact difference, but what 15, I mean, we're going to get into what the minimum wage is worth now versus back many years ago, but in a minute. But $15 is not, that doesn't even, it needs to become the Fight for 20, doesn't it? Or the Fight for 25 or something, because $15 is not going to cut it anymore. I mean, even 10 years ago, it was kind of a half-assed demand, a demand for like the lowest level of human dignity. Let's see. Since 2014, the Fight for 15 movement has set the benchmark for as $15 an hour minimum wage. 30 states and Washington, D.C. have increased their minimum wages. So again, those are the wins that we're talking about. There have been many wins for the Fight for 15. 46 localities have adopted minimum wages above 15. Some of the largest employers in the U.S. have also raised their minimum wages to $15 an hour or more, including Target, Costco, Amazon, Best Buy. It's funny because with some of these examples, so like Amazon, it may be $15 an hour minimum, but they exploit their workers to the breaking point where they're wearing diapers because they can't take a bathroom break and collapsing on the warehouse floor and shit. So maybe 15 is the minimum wage at Amazon, but That don't mean things are good. You know, I like to say that anytime you have your britches filled with shit as you're working, things are not going great. That's what I've always liked to say. Now, see, some of you may be saying, "Oh, he's using the Southern accent to say someone's dumb." I didn't say this guy was dumb. This guy's actually making a lot of sense. I think this guy that I'm impersonating right now, he's got his shit together. He knows exactly what he's talking about. I totally agree with him. Anytime you got your britches filled with a load while you're working, that's not the best job. That's not generally those working with a load in their shorts don't have a union. I'll tell you that much. I'll tell you that much right now. Again, I never said that guy was dumb. That guy's brilliant. So don't tell me I'm using the Southern accent to insult people. But the fight is still very much ongoing. The federal minimum wage has remained $7.25 an hour since 2009. This is the longest period in U.S. history without an increase to the federal minimum wage. And nearly 1 out of every 3 U.S. workers still make less than $15 an hour. 1 out of every 3. That's nearly 52 million workers, according to a study published by Oxfam. The buying power, and now we get into the buying power, which is important. The buying power of $15 in 2012 would be equal, I didn't realize this had this in the article, would be equal to $19.42 in October 2022, after adjustment for inflation. So if we were to keep the fight for 15 exactly as it was when the fight for 15 started, it would right now be the fight for $19.42. And fight for 15 was already a low bar to set. It was not some grandiose, everybody should have an above ground pool kind of situation. I'm not saying nobody making $15 has above ground pool. They might have found one, on the black market, some guy in a back alley. Hey, what you need? Need a little heroin, little crack, above ground pool? And I'm like, you know what? Give me a little bit of that crack and the above ground pool. Yeah, I will take that. I'm not going to do them together because that's dangerous. You always, listen, for the kids out there, always wait a half hour before getting in the pool after you've done crack, okay? Half hour minimum, or you will cramp. All right, so it would be 1942 now, but it gets even worse. The value, this is from the Economic Policy Institute. They do great work, by the way. The value of the federal minimum wage is at its lowest point in 66 years. Meaning, even though the number $7.25 might be higher than it used to be, the actual meaning of that $7 in our society is lower than it's been in 66 years. After the longest period in history without an increase, the minimum wage today is worth 27% less than 13 years ago and 40% less than 1968. And here they show a little chart. 1968, if you were to account for inflation, would be $12.12 an hour today. So think about that, the 1968, and imagine how long ago that was. That was like fucking MLK was being assassinated. That's how long ago that was. Just forever ago. Vietnam was happening, or as they call it in Vietnam, the War of American Aggression. As if there's only one war of American aggression. Come on, Vietnam. Can you be a little more specific? War of American aggression. Oh, how naive. Vietnam. Yeah, that's the only one we got. The 39th War of American Aggression. Anyway, so in 1968, if you account for inflation, it would be $12.12 an hour. In 2009, if you account for inflation, it would have been $9.99. It's almost $10 an hour in 2009. And this year, of course, it is $7.25 an hour. And so yearly, they do the yearly edition here. The yearly math, 1968, the minimum wage would have gotten you, if you account for inflation, over $25,000 a year. In 2009, the minimum wage, accounting for inflation, would have gotten you a little over $20,000 a year, almost $21,000. In 2022, today, the minimum wage would get you $15,000 a year, working all year. I mean, even as a single person working all year, you could barely afford an apartment with $15,000 a year. I don't even know if you could. But here's another fact that they don't actually mention in this article is that they've done studies, and this study is 10 years old, so I actually don't know what today's numbers are. Obviously worse. But if the income distribution between the ruling class, the richest of the rich, if the income distribution had stayed the same in America, and the buying power, the income distribution and the buying power had stayed the same as 1968, then the minimum wage right now would be, or actually this was 10 years ago again, would have been $21. So now it'd be like $25 an hour. So it's $7 an hour. And if the income distribution and buying power had stayed the same, it'd be closer to $25 an hour right now, which is what it fucking should be. I mean, minimum. So, according to the MIT living wage calculator in 2021, a living wage for a family of four, two adults and two children, is $24 an hour before taxes, with regional living wages ranging from $83,000 annually in Tennessee to $123,000 in Washington, D.C. That's what you'd need to have a living wage. That's what a living wage should be. I mean, it's just unbelievable how much workers in this country are exploited, and a lot of this has to do with the gutting of unions. So workers have so little power. And then, of course, the part of this story that I like to give you guys whenever I talk about fighting for workers, fighting for rights, fighting for higher wages, fighting for a union, the part of that I like to give you guys that almost no other even independent outlet, independent journalists, comedian journalists, a lot of them will not give you, is that at the end of the day, wage slavery is not a good system. This is not how our lives should work. Yes, some people work for their passion. Some people get to do that. But a lot of people, the vast majority, work at jobs they either hate or they somewhat hate, and they've convinced themselves it's all right. And also add into that all the people who change the course of their lives in order to make enough money to have an okay life. So they were oh man, they loved art. Oh man, they loved writing. Oh man, they loved A, B, or C. But, push came to shove. They got to pay for college debt. They got to pay for a kid. They got to pay for whatever. And they end up in the job that they at least dislike. Maybe they're okay with it, but it changed the course of their life. Like the wage slavery system of unfettered capitalism that we live in it alters the course of almost everyone's life. Like one of those fucking grocery carts with a bad wheel. You think you're going that way. You're like, I really want to go over that way. And then you just slowly, before you know it, you're at the fucking spray cheeses in the grocery aisle. You're like, I don't want spray cheese. How did I end up here? Why? Why am I at the spray cheeses? And then you get the spray can of cheese because you're like, as long as I'm here, just throw it in the cart. I don't care anymore. I don't even care. I don't care anymore. And then you try and fight back to where you wanted to go. You're like, I'm trying to get to the vegan cheeses. And then it just veers back to the spray aerosol cheeses. But, and these things, many of them are incalculable. Like, you can't really have a study. I mean, you could have polls and things, but you can't really have a study on how many people change the course of their life because of economic force in this system. And as I like to say, when you guys are watching me, and thank you so much for all your support, you'll hear maybe people talk about this story. Maybe people talk about the 10-year anniversary of Fight for 15. Maybe people talk about how many people talk about how the minimum wage is not what it used to be if you account for inflation. Tons of people talking about that. Very few people get into the deepest level of how so many of our lives are changed in order to cram ourselves into a system where, in order to survive, in order to have an okay life, you've got to take a job you hate, dislike, or mildly dislike, or even like, but it wasn't what you wanted to do with your life. Like, honestly, if there were a poll of that, what would it be? 80% of everyone in America? This is the land of free and the land of opportunity. And let's say it's 80%. That might be low. Let's say it's 80%. The land of opportunity, the land that you can do anything you set your mind to. And we got 80% of the people end up doing something with their lives they didn't really set out to do. Even people, I know plenty of people that say they love their job. They could be an accountant. They'd be like, yeah, I've been I studied to be an accountant in college. I've been an accountant ever since, and I have an okay life. But is that what they when they were kids? Is that what they wanted to do? Did they dream of being an accountant? Did they sit there in 6th grade looking out the window going, one day I'll get to help middle-class people find tax loopholes so that they can save a little bit in order to get their above ground pool. And if I know right now I'm young, but one day, was that their dreams as a kid? I find that hard to believe, even if they enjoy their job. But yes, the Fight for 15, 10 years old, and the ruling class continues to laugh at us, continues to laugh at the 90 whatever percent who are not living the life that we deserve, that we should have, a system that is doable. It is doable. There are answers to all of these things, and we do have to fight, and there's many ways to fight, and one of them is what we were talking about earlier, the democracy in the workplace. Like I said, you won't have democracy throughout all of workplaces. Otherwise, that's not capitalism. But you can fight for the democracy in the workplaces. In certain areas, there are co-ops, and there are things where the workers get the benefits of the company and make the decisions of the company. Like the lowest level workers have a say. And by setting that example, make that an infection. Co-op assert your workplace and make that an infection that grows into other co-ops. And I think I read. Did I cover it on one of these live streams? If not, I read an article about how Baltimore has become one of the centers of co-op workplaces, and it was largely because there was one awesome one. I don't remember the name of it. That's still there. And they trained others on how to co-op their workplaces. So that's one way to fight back and create a different future. All right, let's move on to Elon Musk is not the rogue leader of your dreams. And no, I'm not even going to mention Twitter. This is not about Twitter. This is about people that are still worshiping Elon Musk. And they don't seem to understand that not only is he a piece of shit, billionaire, treats his workers like garbage, all that stuff. That's the minimum of it. They don't seem to also realize that he is part and parcel of the military-industrial complex. I'm not saying he's like a CIA agent or anything, but he's friends with them. So this is an article from several months ago by Alan McLeod at Mint Press. Mint Press, great outlet that I also work with for the Most Censored News. I'm going to play for you the newest Most Censored News at the end of this live stream. My show with Mint Press, and you'll get to see it today if you hang in there for the full live stream. But all right, so this is from Alan McLeod. And by the way, how you can tell that someone's a rich douche? For some odd reason, you have to sign something when you become a rich douche that at least at some of the time, not all of them, but some of the time, you will wear a collarless leather jacket, and probably a collarless leather jacket with some sort of buckle. Some sort of buckle around the neck. For some odd reason, that is the rich douche. It goes for celebrities. I'm not even talking billionaires. I'm talking like celebrities with $10 million. You got to have, For some reason, you got to have something that can be buckled around your neck attached to a leather jacket. That is just, at some point, you got to have that if you become a rich douche. Not sure why that is. It's kind of like the altered. It's like a pilgrim light. You know, we weren't going all the way to the buckle hat, but we'll buckle around the neck. We're not buckling the hat, but we'll buckle around the neck to show we're a rich douche. All right, so Elon Musk is not a renegade outsider. He's a massive Pentagon contractor. Musk has deliberately cultivated this image of himself, a real Tony Stark figure who thinks for himself and is not part of the established order. But behind this carefully constructed facade, Musk is intimately connected to the U.S. national security state, serving as one of its most important business partners. Elon, in short, is no threat to the powerful, entrenched elite. He is one of them. And let's get into some of the details. So Elon Musk got a lot of great publicity, positive publicity. You might remember from the beginning of the Ukraine proxy war. Elon Musk got a lot of publicity for donating thousands of Starlink terminals to Ukraine, helping its people come back online after fighting downed after the fighting against Russia downed the internet in much of the country. Starlink is an internet service allowing those with terminals to connect to one of over 2,400 small satellites in low Earth orbit. Many of the satellites were launched by Musk's SpaceX Technologies company. It soon transpired that there is far more than meets the eye with Musk's. Oh, God. Musk's is the most difficult fucking word to say. Musk's. We'll say Elon's. With Elon's extraordinary donation. In fact, the U.S. government quietly paid SpaceX top dollar to send their inventory to the war zone. So this is as he was being given all this credit for donating it. Hey, I've donated these things. He's actually getting paid top dollar. USAID, many of you may already know, a government anti-insurgency agency that has regularly functioned as a regime change organization. It's basically paid by the U.S. government, and they pretend they're doing aid for other countries. We're here to help, folks. And their version of we're here to help always seems to be creating a coup in every country. For some odd reason, that's what they do. It's strange that that's how they help everybody. So USAID is known to have put up the cash to purchase and deliver at least 1,330 of those Starlink terminal. That the Starlinks are serving a military purpose is now beyond clear. Indeed, in a matter of weeks, Starlink has become a cornerstone of the Ukrainian military, allowing it to continue to target Russian forces via drones and other high-tech machinery dependent on an internet connection. One official told the Times of London that he must use Starlink to target enemy forces via thermal imaging. Sorry. And here's something else. I've extensively covered the proxy war in Ukraine and everything showing that this is a proxy war and the U.S. wants to fight Russia to the last Ukrainian and all that stuff. But even if you were one of these liberal people who doesn't want to inform yourself as to what's actually going on there, and you just walk around with your little Ukrainian flag pin, and that makes you a good person, even if you're one of those people, you can't deny that this makes Elon Musk a partner of the military-industrial complex. Even if you're cheering, even if you're going, yay, Starlink, helping those poor Ukrainians, that has nothing to do with the U.S. government creating a proxy war there. Even if you believe that, you still have to admit Elon Musk is deeply contracted with the military-industrial complex. SpaceX chiefs have long profited from their lucrative, so now he's moving on to SpaceX, from their lucrative relationship with the U.S. military. SpaceX relies largely on government contracts, there being almost no civilian demand for many of its products. Yeah, could you imagine what exactly could your average civilian afford from SpaceX? Yeah, me and my honey are saving up. We're saving up to get the $1 billion or whatever $100 million space ticket. To get a ticket to space, it's only $100 million per ticket. We're saving up for that. We put about $27 into the bank each month, and we've calculated we will be able to take that 4-minute space ride in roughly 2,000 years. And we cannot wait. Okay. We are very excited for that. Musk's company has been awarded billions of dollars in contracts to launch spy satellites for espionage, drone warfare, and other military uses. So he's indebted. He's a part of the military industrial complex. He's a military contractor, Elon Musk is. He's part of the military industrial complex to the level of billions of dollars. This is no outsider. Like if I were collecting billions of dollars instead of zero from our military industrial complex, would you still view me as anti-military industrial complex? Or would you say, I think this guy might have a bit of a connection to the military industrial complex? For example, in 2018, SpaceX was chosen to blast a $500 million Lockheed Martin GPS system. So he's working with Lockheed Martin too. Lockheed Martin GPS system into orbit. Well, Air Force spokesman played up the civilian benefits of the launch. Yeah, Lockheed Martin, it always helps civilians. That's really what they do, Lockheed Martin. They just help civilians blow each other up. Civilian benefits of the launch, such as increased accuracy for GPS devices. It is clear that these devices play a key role in global surveillance and ongoing drone wars. SpaceX has also won contracts with the Air Force to deliver its command satellite into orbit with the Space Development Agency. Now this is where we get into Elon Musk's ties with the CIA. I know you were worried that he only works with the military and weapons contractors, and you were like, yeah, but he doesn't work with the CIA, so I'm still going to trust him. He does work with the CIA. And in fact, I didn't realize this until reading this article. He's worked with them since essentially his beginning, since before any of you knew his name. I'd be very surprised if any of you knew his name in 2002. I did not. But going back to 2002, from its origins in 2002, SpaceX has always been extremely close to the national security state, particularly the CIA. Perhaps the most crucial link is Mike Griffin, who at the time, 2002, was the president and chief operating officer of In-Q-Tel. Now, some of you, I don't know if you've ever heard of In-Q-Tel. Some of you may have. In-Q-Tel is a CIA-funded venture capital firm. It is basically the CIA's venture capital arm. So when In-Q-Tel helps create a business, it is the CIA in business with that company. It just has a different name, so people can go, oh, it's not the CIA, it's In-Q-Tel. In-Q-Tel was also pivotal in the early days of Google. I think they were connected to Facebook in fairly early days. So this is the CIA venture capital arm because, the CIA wanted to get in on some of the money too. Griffin was with Musk virtually from day one. They even traveled to Russia together in 2002. This is when we were a little better friends with Russia. Traveled to Russia together in 2002. Griffin has gone to war for Musk, defending him, consistently backing him as a potential Henry Ford of the rocket industry. 3 years later, after 2002, so 2005, I did that math myself. Are you impressed with that? I just heard 2002 and I was like, 3 years later, bam, 2005. What? Didn't have to look it up or nothing. 3 years later, Griffin would become head of NASA. Heard of NASA? And later would hold a senior post at the Defense Department. I mean, is anybody else concerned that the head of the CIA's venture capital arm then became the head of NASA? Is that not also a little annoying? But all right, so Elon Musk besties with the head of the CIA's venture capital firm. Then that same guy takes a high position at the Department of Defense. He's getting billions of dollars from the Defense Department. During a 2018 publicity stunt. Oh, this part I just included in here just because I think it's fun. It's just fucking hilarious. During a 2018 publicity stunt, you might recall he blasted a Tesla into outer space that is still drifting out into space. There was video of it, at least at the beginning, using a SpaceX rocket, like literally the Tesla, the car. So there's a red Tesla floating through outer space right now. However, he did not sterilize the vehicle before doing so, meaning it was covered in earthly bacteria, microorganisms that will likely be fatal to any alien life they encounter. In essence, the car is a biological weapon that could end life on any planet it encounters. I just love that idea. We're like, welcome. This is an American rocket, and we're saying hello to you, aliens on a far off planet, and it comes crashing down, and immediately they all just get a cough and die. Isn't that how War of the Worlds ended? We're sending Elon Musk has sent a biological weapon to other worlds. And then the last part I'll do from this article. The article has more stuff. You can go to it at Mint Press. But just to mention Elon's, because I don't want to say Musk's, love of coups, including the love of the U.S. coup in Bolivia, U.S.-backed coup in Bolivia. And he famously, when he was tweeted about how he benefited from the coup in Bolivia because his cars need lithium, and Bolivia has one of the largest lithium stores in the world. And so to have that lithium sold rather than nationalized, sold to him for cheap, sounded good. And Elon Musk, rather than saying, oh, no, I would never support a country, he just tweeted, we'll coup whoever we want to coup. Basically, it seemed to be admitting somehow connection to the U.S.-backed coup, which, by the way, has been undone since then. The Bolivian people stood up, fought back, and they have undone that coup. But I don't think Elon Musk was admitting any kind of connection to it. He was just basically saying, like, yeah, I don't give a shit. I like it. Yeah, maybe I'll get cheap lithium. Awesome. Sounds good to me. All right, folks. I am about to reveal Meta's, aka Facebook's, threat analysis that actually indicts the U.S. military. I don't mean in the legal sense, but which is hilarious because Facebook does essentially everything the U.S. government wants. But I guess this went a little rogue of what the U.S. military would want Facebook to be telling everybody. And then I'm going to get into possibly one other story, as well as the newest episode of The Most Censored News. In that episode, I detail the funding of how the new speaker, not new speaker of the House because they're in the minority now, but the new leader of the Dems, the leader of the Democrats in the House, he's taking Nancy Pelosi's position. Hakeem Jeffries, he was voted in easily. The Dems were like, this guy's great. Hakeem Jeffries, he is fully and 100% funded by the worst of the worst. And I'm going to detail exactly where his funding's come from. And that's in the latest episode of The Most Censored News, which I will play in a few minutes. But that's all at rumble.com/Lee Camp. So please join me over there. It's completely free to watch over there. But either way, I hope you will become a member at leecamp.net. I'm basically 70%, I believe, of the way to making this model sustainable, being able to do these going forward for a long time. And so I'd love for you to become a member at leecamp.net at any level, any tier. And you get exclusive content. You get Q&As with me every Friday, where I literally address almost every single comment that I can, which is essentially almost all of them. And I can really chat with you guys. That's every Friday. We just hang out, and I'd love to see you there. So join up at leecamp.net. You get other exclusive stuff as well. But until then, I will continue this right now. This is continuing right now at rumble.com/leecamp. Oh, also, quick note. Interview with Ben Norton, great journalist, Ben Norton, multipolarista.com, formerly with the Gray Zone. I reference his stuff all the time. I'm interviewing him tomorrow for an hour, getting into all kinds of gruesome and gnarly stories. You're going to love it. And that's at youtube.com/behind the headlines. That's the Mint Press YouTube page, youtube.com/behind the headlines. But right now we're going over to Rumble, rumble.com/Lee Camp. So join me over there. All right. I will keep going here in 1 second. Here's a topic for those of you waiting at home while I do this. Pop quiz. Is the anteater the only animal named after what it eats? Do, 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 do.